Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever episode of the Lonely Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Ariane, and today a new podcast is born. Now, I want to introduce myself a little bit for those who don't know me, but also for those who have been following me, but don't really know all that much about me. Let me just go over the basics. So I am a Mexican artist, mainly an illustrator, although also sometimes a graphic designer. I'm 25 years old. I was born in the Mexican Caribbean in a little island called Cozumel, and I've been drawing and fascinated by art since I was a little kid. And I know it's really cliche. A lot of artists say the same thing, but it is true. I was born and my first memories are of me creating drawings and stories in my head. I love to tell stories, but I also love to visualize those stories, and it's like the perfect combination for me to be able to create illustrations. I also try and make comics, although I haven't been too successful in that area in the past. And this year, 2020, is the year that I decided that I was going to take my journey as a full-time artist seriously. Now, I think I picked the wrong year to do this, but even though I picked this crazy year, the universe has been so good to me that I couldn't not say thank you. I created my YouTube channel this year. I've met so many incredible artists on Instagram this year. I'm starting my first ever podcast this year. And even though I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination, this has been the first year of my life that I've made profit from my art every single month. Very little profit, but profit nevertheless. And I know a lot of people who are artists who can't say the same. I know a lot of people are struggling in this pandemic era, year of our life, and I don't want to not be sensitive to that. But I'm very happy that this year has come along, because it has been a year about taking a leap of faith on myself and believing in myself. English is not my first language, so there will be mistakes in the way I say things. And I also don't have a studio space where to record my podcast. I record it in a very small room, which is a studio that I'm renting at the moment as an Airbnb. So I do apologize for any noises that may come into play while I'm recording the podcast. It's something that's completely out of my control, and so I'm just gonna go with the flow. One of the things that I'm really excited to share with you guys in this podcast is the knowledge that I acquire through this journey of trying to become a full-time artist, and talking about the things that I can't control, like the sounds around me right now as I'm recording my podcast. It reminds me of something that I've learned recently, that I've always really known, but something that I've really been trying to practice recently, and that is to try and stay calm about the things that I can't control and simply focus on the things that I can. If I were to be the same person I used to be before trying to apply this knowledge, I would not be sitting here recording my podcast, because I would be worrying so much about the sounds around me that I would just go insane. So I'm really happy to say that I am applying the things that I am saying I will apply in my life, because it's easy to talk the talk, but it's really hard to walk the walk. And obviously I'm not perfect, but that is also a part of why I created this journal, this podcast, this journey, this thing that honestly, sometimes I think about it and I'm like, who really wants to listen to me? But at the same time, I also think I've listened to some people who are not really well known or famous or whatever, but that have really impacted me in a very positive way in my life. And ultimately, that is the intention that I have with this podcast, is to try and take you guys along with me into my learning experience as an artist, but also as a person, and try to positively, is that even a word? Well, try to impact you guys in a positive way. And if I impact just one of you guys, I'm more than happy. The internet is a crazy world, and there's so many bad things going on everywhere in real life and the internet, and a good, positive, calm, and relaxing podcast about art, come on guys, it's kind of something that we all need. At least it's something that I need, and it's something that I would love to hear. So then I decided I'm just gonna do it myself. And I do encourage all of you guys who are aspiring artists, not only in the illustration field but also in writing, music, or whatever. If there is something that does not exist for you that you would love to hear, that you would love to see or to create, just go for it. Create it. It might not be perfect, you might not be the best artist that you know or that you feel that you are, but it hasn't been done, so the fact that you're doing it is just awesome enough. And most of the things that I'm going to be telling you guys are things that I'm trying to tell myself, that I'm trying to learn myself. So I hope I don't come across as like a know-it-all or super cocky in the things that I share. I'm just really trying to just convey the things that I learn every day and trying to like digest them a little bit while I talk to you guys, and so that we can all talk about them later in other podcasts or even in the comments or just in general. I kind of see this podcast as a journey / therapy thing, but also as something that I honestly do think many people could like. Just a nice little relaxing time with someone that can hopefully feel like a friend to you guys, even though this is a weird relationship because it's one-sided. But you know what I mean. I love podcasts. I hear podcasts every single day, every time that I paint, which is all the time, and I always love to hear somebody talk to me or talk about something that I'm very interested about. And yeah, that's how the idea of this podcast was born. Now, the name of the podcast is The Lonely Artist because I'm a person who is alone a lot. I do have a partner, and I do have a lovely pet called Whiskey, and she's the best. But I do find myself isolated a lot of the time. Even before the pandemic, I'm a person who kind of resorts to going into her own little world, and I tend to be very alone. Not necessarily lonely, but just a very lonely person. And it doesn't really bother me. But at the same time, I've learned through time that the things that really make us happy and passionate are sometimes pointless if we don't get to share them with anybody. And also, as an artist, even though I'm scared of people, I've learned that the more you connect with other humans that are in the same journey as you, the better your chances are of finding paths that are easier and finding paths with people that can help you get to where you want to be. And I don't mean it in a way of like, oh, if you're sociable, then you're going to find people that can give you things, or just talk to people to gain things out of them. But what I mean is, the more you try and human, the more you try and interact with people, and especially people that are in the same position as you are, for example me trying to be an artist, the easier it gets, because you have somebody who relates to you in a personal level, and you also have somebody who you can support in their journey, and they can support you back. It obviously has to be genuine. If you guys don't like people, well, you know. I do like people, I'm just scared of like interactions, and I never really know how to approach people. So the reason why I call this podcast The Lonely Artist is because I am a lonely artist, and I don't want to be a lonely artist anymore. I want to create a group of people that I can call my art community, that we can grow together. And so part of the reason I want to do that, part of the reason I created the podcast, is to go out into the world and force myself to approach other small artists like myself, and possibly in the future in other podcasts interview them and talk about their journey and how it is different from mine and what they have learned. And I'm really excited because I already have people in mind that I really want to interview, and I hopefully will be able to. I just need to figure out how I'm going to be interviewing them on the internet and recording our voices at the same time. I'm not an expert, like I said, on podcasts, so I've never really done it, but it's part of the plan. I want to be interviewing artists that I follow, that I admire, that are small like me, and so we can like create this little cool community. And also, if you guys are people who are starting your own art journey and you're really trying to make this your living or your full-time job, feel free to message me if you're interested in a conversation for my podcast. And I hopefully won't be saying a lot of ums in my podcast in the future, but do keep in mind this is my second language, so sometimes my brain needs to like process a little bit before I say things. Although there's always the magic of editing, which is lovely because I'm most definitely editing a lot of things that I will be saying here. Because yeah, I use a lot of crutches for when I speak, like saying like a lot or a lot. The Lonely Artist podcast is also a little bit, like I've said, not only like a therapy or just a conversation with you guys, but also a journal of the journey. I feel like a lot of people that I look up to seem or feel so out of my reach. They obviously seem like people, but I don't really empathize. I don't feel like they're struggling, and maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But part of the reason I want to make the podcast is so that I can show you guys the ups and downs of this in the most crude and raw, real possible way that I can, because I don't mean to try and curate my life or my artist journey like most people do nowadays. I'm going to try and keep it as real as I possibly can. Now, I'm not very comfortable with like talking about personal things, like my relationships with my people that are like intimate, like my partner or my family or things like that. But I do want to be intimate in the journey of the artist, the struggles of the person that's trying to do this career of being a full-time artist, which even though I feel like now it's easier than ever to be an artist, it's still not the path that most people take. And it's still a path that is so daunting to so many of us that we end up doing things that we don't want to do instead of becoming artists, which is incredible that it still happens, but it happened to me and it'll happen to many people. I'm not as young as I would like to be to start making this a thing, even though I'm 25 and I'm really young. I wish I knew the things I know now so that my 18-year-old self could have started this journey earlier. But we all have our time, and this is the time that I decided to put my dreams into action. So that is why I created the podcast. You will also be noticing, if you guys are hearing this podcast on YouTube and not on like Spotify or iTunes, that with every podcast I will be trying to also add a speed paint so you guys can see a process of any illustration that I'm making at the time of recording the podcast that I record. And right now, to the guys that are seeing this podcast on YouTube, I am illustrating the cover for this Lonely Artist podcast. I really want to create an illustration that becomes like the symbol of the podcast, that is recognizable. And yeah, that's what you're looking at right now if you're watching this on YouTube. Now, I do want to give you guys a little like sense of where I am at in my journey right now. But before I do that, just a few more things that you can expect from the podcast will be news on projects that I take on, my experiences with commissions that I do have and I have done for some years now, obviously the things that I've learned, and if I do ever create any events or live streams, I will be notifying you through here. This will be the channel where everything will be laid out for you guys, so you know exactly what's going on in my life, in my artist journey. Now, what I wanted to say is, at this point in my life, I started posting regularly on Instagram in 2018, but even though I said I was going to become a full-time artist then, I was still working for my partner's marketing agency as a graphic designer. At that point, I decided that I was still going to help him with the graphic design for the agency, but only part-time, so that I could dedicate more of my time to my art. But I wasn't very consistent with it. I created a YouTube channel before that I didn't really put too much effort into, and it wasn't really my real voice. It wasn't really the thing that I wanted to share with you, and so I kind of just left it. I burned out so quickly from that, and I ended up just hiding that channel. And then 2019 came around, and there were many things going on in my life that made it really hard for me to focus on trying to be a full-time artist. Now, I did try to do that, and I was still a part-time graphic designer for my partner's agency, but I was starting to get some commissions, but it was like getting, I don't know, around $35 to $70 a month. And at the end of the summer in 2019, I decided, okay, if I am going to be doing this for real, I have to take myself seriously. So I started charging what I believe to be the right amount of money for my commissions. And as it turned out, when I changed my prices from extremely accessible and underpaid to reasonable, nobody wanted to pay for commissions. And I did not get commissions from September until December of that year. And I was very, very saddened by this, because I thought, what am I going to do? Of course, I'm very happy supporting my partner in his project, which is his agency, but I don't want to be a graphic designer all of my life. And of course, I'm doing work for like corporate things that are not creative and not exciting for me. So what's gonna happen? Am I gonna do this for the rest of my life? Then I had this like incredibly anxious thought process of what was gonna happen with me, because my art was not taking off. And I realized at the end of the year that my focus was really, really not the right one. I was focusing so much on just becoming profitable that I was not focusing on what kind of message I wanted to share, what kind of artist I wanted to be, even what kind of brand I wanted to create around my art and my life as an artist. Because I'm not oblivious to the fact that we can't just paint all day and expect things to happen, and we do have to market ourselves and create a brand around us, and like take advantage of social media to be able to make profit from our creations, etc., etc. But at the same time, I was so desperate just to make a lot of money for my art, just so that I could stop working and the things that I don't like working, that I just didn't do what I had to do, and it just didn't work, because people can't see through your desperation. They really can. And if you're desperate, nothing's gonna happen for you. People are gonna sniff that desperation from miles away. So in December, even though my life in so many aspects was sort of falling apart, and then I didn't even know that the pandemic was coming, I decided to relaunch my YouTube channel. And I decided to focus more on having fun while creating my projects, rather than just doing them to get likes or get views and get commissions. And funny enough, January came around, the first month of 2020 came around. I was completely relaxed and had no expectations about making anything out of my art other than just doing the thing that I really wanted to do. And then commissions started coming, and I started being able to make a little bit of money from my art, finally, like, and consistently, which was just mind-blowing. It was the first time, and it was the first month that I've ever made so much from my art. It was just so incredible. And this year I decided that I was gonna help my partner with some projects that really needed my attention as a graphic designer, but I'm not even like part-time anymore. I'm just freelance in that aspect, and in that way I can still support me, my partner, and my dog with, income, and not just fully leave myself up for the universe to do whatever it wants to do with me while I try to be an artist and starve to death. But I was able to just basically create all the things that I wanted to create throughout the week, and just dedicate like 4-6 hours a week to actual corporate things that created money, and the rest was just free time for me to do what I wanted to do. And I'm not saying it was all perfect, because obviously we don't really know sometimes. Even though we know what we want, we don't really know how to achieve it. And I was feeling lost in how I was going to be doing things, but I stopped worrying about it being perfect, and I just started doing what I had to do. I have been posting videos every single week. I haven't been posting twice a week every single week, but I have been posting one video every single week since January, and I haven't failed. And I don't feel like I'm doing this in a way that it's going to burn me out, because I'm only doing the things that I really, really want to do. And the only reason I'm not letting any week pass by without me uploading a video is because I don't want the algorithm to screw with all that I've been able to achieve now that August has come around. I'm recording this in August, by the way, although you'll be hearing this podcast until September. Well, if you're a patron, you'll definitely hear this in August, but if you're on YouTube or on a platform like Spotify, you're hearing this in September, or whenever you find this podcast. Anyway, since then, I've been able to grow my YouTube, not a lot, but I have 3,000 subscribers right now, and I have been able to just get work from my art, from my own personal project, every single month. I was even really worried about, COVID and all that screwing up with the momentum that I had gained, but surprisingly enough, it did not affect it at all. And I do believe it has to do with the fact that even through really tough times, I kept true to my word, and I did the things that I loved without expectations. And lo and behold, I'm not making even enough for like groceries for an entire month with my art. Well, maybe I am some months, but I'm making enough that I've been profitable every month since January. And I'm not saying this as I'm not saying this to brag about it. I'm just saying it because I am so excited about it, and I do want to celebrate that I've achieved this. For me, this is a very big thing. I'm also saying this because I want you guys to know where I am at as an artist, what I'm achieving at the moment. And of course, I want to achieve so much more, but it is also for you guys to see that it can happen for you too. But you also have to do it with true passion and with a true intent of just enjoying the ride, the journey. Sometimes, and I'm not perfect at this by any means, but sometimes we're so focused on the goal, and this is something that I struggle with so much, that we never enjoy the journey. We sometimes don't even remember the journey. It's been so painful that we just don't want to deal with it, and we end up being sour because we didn't even get what we wanted. Now imagine if you focus on a goal in your life that you really, really want to achieve, but you also enjoy every single day of that journey. Whether or not you achieve that goal, at least you're going to have positive memories, and you're going to have a positive feeling about the journey and what you did to achieve your goal. I'm not somebody who can tell you guys that whatever I'm doing is going to be extremely successful in the future. I certainly hope that it will be, but as of today, I am at least going to try and enjoy every single moment, because I am aware and I am sensitive to the fact that I am very lucky compared to a lot of people who have real struggles in life, and I don't want to get too dramatic about it, but I am very lucky that I get to try and achieve this dream. And if you guys are in a position where you feel like you can't do the things that you love, if you feel like something is stopping you, if you feel like you don't have enough time, if you feel like there's too many artists in the world, try and always remember that there's always room for the best, but there's also always time. If you really, really, truly love something and you really want to achieve it, there's always at least 15 minutes out of your day that you can dedicate to trying to make your dreams a reality. And I do want to end on this motivational note. I am not a motivational speaker, and honestly I don't even have any achievements that I can boast about in my life to even try and be a motivational speaker. But if anything, I want this podcast to be so positive that you finish listening to it and feel a sense of calm, maybe empowerment, maybe just happiness. I mean, that would be great if I could make you guys feel a bit happy. That would be so amazing. Well, with that being said, I am going to be seeing you for the next podcast on, I believe, Friday 25th of September. If you guys become patrons, you're going to be able to see this podcast that is coming on Sunday 20th, so 5 days before it launches to the general public. But I know we just met, so you might not want to support me just yet, but if you do want to hear me out a bit more, I invite you to follow me on my social media, and we can talk a little bit more on the next one. You can listen to me rambling on the next podcast that I make. Who knows? Maybe something cool comes out of you listening to me, or maybe I'm just cool enough to be what you listen to while you clean your house or something like that. I don't know. All right, well, thank you so much for listening to what I had to say. I'm your host, Ariane, and this is so funny to me because I've heard so many podcasts. But anyway, yeah, thank you so much. I'll be seeing you for the next one.